President made only one appearance with Hillary Clinton. That was this summer before the convention. But reportedly, he will join her for an event in a couple of weeks and then campaign for her virtually every day through October. The president has a big incentive for helping Mrs. Clinton win the White House. His legacy very much at stake in this election. Let's bring in Carol Lee, White House correspondent for the Wall Street Journal. So the president is trying to help Mrs. Clinton win because he's afraid what? Donald Trump will undo many of the things that he has done?
That's exactly right. If you talk to White House officials or anyone who worked on the president's first two campaigns, they will tell you that their biggest fear is to watch Donald Trump do what President Obama did when he came into office within days of undoing every day, and I covered it, every day there would be an event where he would make a show of undoing some policy that President Bush had adopted, and they continued to do that for the first 100 days. And so in many ways, this is an election that is as important to the president as his own two elections are, because his entire legacy is on the line.
But for instance, a day or two after he took office, he announced he was going to close the Guantanamo Bay prison. I'm talking about President Obama, obviously. Said he was going to do that, and that still has not been accomplished. I mean, president's hands in some respects are tied.
They are, and that has been one of the most stubborn policy items on his agenda. He still says that he's going to close it within the next 5 months. If you look back over the last 7.5 years, you'll see how difficult that actually is, and most people don't expect that to happen, but that is still a priority of his. And, you know, it's another reason, the Guantanamo Bay prison is another reason why the president would like to make sure that it's Hillary Clinton and not Donald Trump who takes office in January, because the likelihood that that prison is not going to be closed is high, and Donald Trump has said he would add to Guantanamo Bay, whereas Hillary Clinton was more in line with where the president is on that issue, and a number of issues.
Well, the polls have been tightening. We'll get into that a little bit later on in the hour, but the press secretary for the president, Josh Earnest, was aboard Air Force One. He weighed in with this quote. He said, "I think one observation that I can make is that one of the benefits of having the strong political support of someone as high profile and as influential as President Obama is that he doesn't struggle to get attention for the affirmative case that he will make for Secretary Clinton. There may be other prominent supporters of Secretary Clinton that only get a lot of attention for their remarks if they are appearing on stage with Secretary Clinton. President Obama can do so on his own." So as I said, the polls have been tightening. If she trots out President Obama, is that going to be enough to reverse that trend?
That is the biggest question. No one really knows yet. The president, however, is tremendously popular when you look at past sitting presidents, and they don't tend to campaign for their party's nominee because they're not as popular. You didn't see George W. Bush on the campaign trail in 2008, for instance. President Obama's approval ratings have steadily been on the rise, and so that makes him, in the eyes of the Clinton campaign, a real asset on the campaign trail. And while you haven't seen him on the campaign trail, you know, in a meaningful way yet, their plan is to have him out there tremendously in October, with the hope that if he is steadily on the campaign trail, his popularity will, you know, will energize voters, and he'll be able to bring her over the finish line. But no one really knows. Why
not work on his legislative agenda? I mean, if you're a lame duck president, if you're going into the final months of your term, why not, you know, pick up the phone and call the Speaker of the House and the Majority Leader of the Senate and try and get some things accomplished?
Well, if you look back over the last several years, they haven't been able to accomplish much anyways, and no one expects that any legislation, even if the president were to lean into it and make a big push right now, is going to be moving through Congress, particularly this close to the election. And I think in the eyes of the president, from his viewpoint, his best way of advancing his agenda right now is to make sure that Hillary Clinton gets elected. And so that's where he's putting all of his energy. That's where his energy will be in coming weeks. And then in the lame duck session, there is some hope within the White House, although not really any hope on Capitol Hill, that he'll be able to get one of his big pieces of legislation, and that is the Trans-Pacific Trade Partnership, the new trade pact with Asia. And that's really the last piece of big business that he has that he would like Congress to do for him.
But even Hillary Clinton opposes that, as does Donald Trump. So if that gets signed, is that something that the new president, whoever it might be, could undo?
Well, if it passes legislatively, it would be very hard to undo. And that's why this president would like to make sure it gets passed in this last session of Congress before he leaves office. But if you talk to Republicans leadership on Capitol Hill, they say it's not going to happen. And in the White House, they're still holding out hope. The president will go to Asia this week, and he'll try to make a big pitch there. He'll try to make the case for it in coming weeks here in the U.S. And it remains to be seen whether or not he will be successful. But it used to be that people thought that it would happen in the lame duck session, if not even before. And now those hopes are really, really dim.